Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited to have you here for another episode filled with 4 unusual encounter stories that you won't want to miss. If you love hearing these encounter stories, be sure to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell so that you'll never miss another upload. And if you've had one of your own, I'd love to hear about it. Send your stories to ontariocryptids@gmail.com and it might be featured in a future episode. Now, let's dive into these amazing stories. Me and another person were in the area measuring and sampling rocks exposed near Cane Creek. We are geologists. Throughout that morning, farmers had been hunting on their lands. As a result, we can hear sporadic gunfire all around us. After about 30 minutes to an hour, most of the gunfire had ceased. Sometime later, as I worked, I heard a rustling sound behind me. Believing it to be some kind of animal coming towards us, I turned my head to see behind me. Immediately, I observed something hanging from a low branch over the bridge on the opposite bank of the creek from me. The first feature I noticed was the unusual long arms of this thing. Secondly, I noticed that it was covered with reddish-brown long hair. The creature was hanging from the lower branch with its arms much like an orangutan does. In fact, the hair and the way it was hanging from the tree made me think of an orangutan. Also, for some reason, I seem to remember that the arms had less hair than the rest of the body. The entity that I saw was about 4 to 5 feet long, with half of that being its arm. The body was round and squat. I did not notice the legs or head of the thing. The window of observation was about 10 to 15 seconds, although I cannot be positive. Anyways, as soon as I noticed the thing, it dropped from the tree onto the ground. However, the presence of the bridge prevented me from seeing it hit the ground, but I do believe I heard further rustling sounds, although that was probably just my imagination. Afterwards, I asked my companion if he saw or heard anything. Although he indicated that he may have heard something, he said he didn't see anything extraordinary. That meant I was the only witness. We did not really search the area afterwards for traces or the creature itself. Since no other unusual sounds or sights occurred after this, we felt that nothing would probably be revealed. However, I did have a vague temporary feeling that this thing was advancing towards us. Of course, considering the brief span of observation time, the distance of about 200 to 300 feet from me, and the lack of additional evidence, I still cannot be positive that what I saw was genuine. My wife and I were having a picnic supper at Salt Fork State Park on August 18th, 2004 at approximately 7:00 p.m. After approximately 15 minutes, we decided to hike down a path into the woods with our dog. After progressing approximately 15 feet into the woods, we heard loud, unexplainable noises. The noises/howls continued as whatever was making the noise seemed to be walking parallel with us. We were nearly 75 yards into the wooded area when we stopped and looked more closely to see what was making the noises. The noise was heard again, and I saw it, and began shouting at my wife, "There it is! There it is!" Together we saw what appeared to be a nearly 8-foot-tall, dark-colored subject looking at us. We watched it for about 10 seconds, and then it walked upright in a human form, deeper into the woods and away from us. Scared, we turned and quickly walked back out of the woods, hearing the noise several times behind us. We reached our picnic area, picked up our belongings, and that's when we heard it again, this time thunderously loud. and we knew it had followed us and believed it was within 50 feet of us, still concealed in the woods. We grabbed our stuff and ran to our vehicle with our dog. It was the eeriest encounter we have ever had in our lives. My family and I were driving home early one morning between 2 and 3 a.m. We took a shortcut down Highway 63, which runs between Haleyville, Oklahoma and Kiowa, Oklahoma. The highway is now paved, but at the time of our encounter, it was a well-maintained dirt road. The road had many curves and hills, and we traveled around 40 to 50 miles per hour. We crossed over a hill, and right below the hill was a small bridge. On the bridge was a creature that was standing to the right of our pickup as we passed by. The creature was between 6 to 7 feet tall and had brown shaggy hair all over. It was similar to an Irish settler's dog. As we passed, I looked at the creature right in the face. His face resembled that of an old man's, more human than ape-like. I could see that the creature's face had wrinkles and very little hair around its eyes and nose. The creature had no neck, and it looks as if his head was just plopped on his shoulders. I felt like we surprised the creature, and once he finally saw us, he had nowhere to go. I remember seeing him stand real stiff-like against a bridge railing as we passed. I asked my mother to turn around and see if we can get a better look at this mysterious creature. She replied, "No way." I asked her what she thought we saw. She replied, "I guess it was a bear." I felt like it looked more like a man, and she said that it was way too big to be a man. At the time of this incident, I had never heard of such a thing as Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Although we only got a quick glimpse of this creature, it couldn't have been an illusion. We all felt that we saw the same thing. Over the Labor Day weekend last year, I drove from Salt Lake City, Utah to Jackson, Wyoming for a solo weekend of hiking and camping. On the drive up, I listened to one of my favorite podcasts, Tooth and Claw. One of the episodes I listened to was about Bigfoot and featured the guys from Bigfoot Collectors Club podcasts. The episode interested me enough to listen to one of the Bigfoot Collectors Club episode that featured a couple of guys from Tooth and Claw. Episode number 218, The Michigan Dogman. The episode didn't really spook me while listening to it, and the rest of the day and evening was totally normal. I hung around town later that evening as the area I was camping at doesn't have great service, and I wanted to talk to my wife who stayed in Salt Lake City for a friend's birthday. Driving from Jackson, Wyoming to where I was camping is about a 30-minute drive, and it was about 9:30 when I left Jackson. My wife is from Michigan, so while catching up on the day's activities, I asked her if she ever heard of the Michigan Dogman. She had not, but the conversation turned into telling her about the Michigan Dogman and her looking it up online. Skinwalkers were also brought up in the show, so we talked about those as well. Living in Utah and being part of the outdoor community, we both heard about skinwalkers. During the course of our conversation about the Michigan Dogman and skinwalkers, I started to get spooked. This escalated and turned into really spooked full-body chills, and something is watching me spooked. I glanced in my back seat, nothing. I glanced out the windows, nothing. It is pitch black, so I'm not sure I would have seen anything if something was there. I do this a few times. Then I heard a big crashing sound at my driver's side window. My window had completely shattered. There was no window left except a few shards of glass. The rest is on my lap and on the floor of the car. I let out a primal scream as this was happening. With my adrenaline coursing and full body chills going, still feeling like something had eyes on me, I drove a few more miles down the road, keeping close tabs on my surroundings as I was doing so. The only thing I saw in these few miles was a big buck elk on the side of the road, which acted like a totally normal bull elk and just watched me drive past. Knowing there was no way in hell I was going to camp that night, I flipped around at the viewpoint turnaround and headed back to Jackson. I was on high alert, still feeling like I was being watched nearly the entire ride into town, but nothing else happened. As I approached town, I felt less spooked and more shook up about what just happened. Prior to this incident, I honestly thought this kind of stuff was a load of baloney and laughed off anything that's not science-based. While I still had no idea what really happened that night, and there's always a chance this was just a crazy coincidence, I feel like something weird was definitely going on out there. Oh, I should mention that I was still on the phone with my wife and driving 35 to 40 miles per hour as this was happening. She heard all of it and it scared the crap out of her. She thought I was involved in a car crash. I should mention I was hands-free as well. Thank you all for listening until the end. I hope you found these 4 encounter stories intriguing. If I can just add that, like in the last story, if your gut is telling you to leave, then leave. Our bodies all have this intuition mechanism built in, and it's there to protect us. So listen to your body when it tells you it's time to leave, and do just that. If you enjoy this content and want to support the channel, consider becoming a channel member for exclusive perks. Now, let's acknowledge the current OC members. I would like to thank Elizabeth, Jim, Diana, and Teresa for the contribution and support as members of the OC membership program. Your support is truly appreciated. And of course, don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss another episode. And if you have an encounter story of your own, I'd love to hear it. Send it to ontariocryptids@gmail.com. I would be honored to share your story with the OC community. Also, before I forget, happy belated Valentine's Day to you all. Wishing you all have a fantastic week ahead, and be sure to tune in next week for another thrilling episode on Ontario Cryptids.